has to do with the well, how mainstream media is treating Sanders, well, Super Tuesday in general. And there are two sides to this. And this is, of course, in a sense that I've been very surprised when I've been watching NBC, CNN. For their standards, they're actually doing a decent job, which is still like, the bar.
That's really, you're going pretty far, buddy.
Bar is here. They're acting here. They usually act down here. So the fact they're acting here, give them a little bit of credit, even though they really don't deserve it. But I wanted to kind of read this article, a little bit of this article, but I really wanted to more talk about kind of what the ramifications are of Super Tuesday with Sanders out of this. So, of course, you can tell right away as soon as we read this, just the tone of the writer who did this. It's on a little more of the screw Sanders side, so let's talk about it. Bernie Sanders' self-proclaimed, quote, political revolution crashed into a wall of resistance inside the Democratic Party last night after a remarkable 72 hours that saw top party leaders consolidate behind Joe Biden. A panoramic array of key party voting groups coalesced around the former vice president and against Sanders in coast-to-coast competition, according to exit polls conducted in almost all the states that voted. Biden captured at least 9 of the 14 states, including some such as Minnesota and Oklahoma, where Sanders won big in 2016. Get into that in a second. Sanders has made no effort to reach outside his voters, his movement, and his revolution. Greenberg says after all of Nevada existed and was a big thing where they admitted that wasn't true. Anyway, it just has not grown. Again, refer to Nevada. It is utterly a stable vote that is grounded in the very liberal portion of the Democratic Party, except, again, in Nevada. But he's so disdainful of any outreach behind the base, he seems content just to keep hitting the drum. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, despite spending a breathtaking $234 million on advertising, did not win a single state. He poured $77 million into California, which he actually got a decent amount of the vote in. $57 million into Texas, and finished behind Sanders and Biden. The results did not ensure that Biden has won the nomination or Sanders defeated. Sanders still won 4 states, including a solid, if not crushing, victory in California, the largest prize on the board. So I kind of want to jump back to the states because there's actually I was a little bit more down about it, but there's actually Kim Iverson just put out a video a few hours ago that I recommend everyone check out.
Yeah,
it was a very interesting repositioning of how to think of this. And again, it's like there's no question. Like what I'm about to say next, Sanders needs to change his strategy. He needs to do a lot of things different. He needs to go after Biden. He needs to do the thing. So if we take that, put that in a package, and then throw it over there for a second, let's talk about yesterday and how that works. So the states that Biden won, for the most part, were all southern states that Democrats just don't win anyway in a general election. So we have that part of it's there. Second is, if you compare, and now that Biden has consolidated all of these votes together, and Warren is literally splitting Sanders' vote. But basically, at this point, like a couple days ago, it was like 1,000 establishment people and then like Bernie and then sort of Warren on the other side. And now, today, during the super primary, it's one establishment candidate, Bernie, and then Warren siphoning off Bernie's voting. So let's keep that in mind. So if we think of it that way, the establishment vote has consolidated. So right. The numbers that Biden got are representative of the entire or near the entire establishment ethos. So with that in mind, he won the South. Okay, now let's go back to 2016 when it was just Sanders versus Hillary. Hillary won the South too. But in that election, Sanders was losing like 60-40, 85-15, 70-30. In this case, he's getting a few states that's like 50-20. He has a lot of states that are like 10-point differences. So if you look at the delegate shifts from 2016 to 2020, Sanders has actually narrowed them quite significantly compared to what Hillary Clinton did against him last time. So let's go into the other states that we expected Sanders to win and didn't. Massachusetts. Well, that's obvious. That's a very much a Warren really screwed up that entire vote right there. There you have it. That's pretty much what happened there. So you have that split, and the campaign, most people have admitted, the NBC News has basically admitted that if Warren had not been in Massachusetts, Sanders would have won Massachusetts. So there you go with that. You have Minnesota. That's Amy Klobuchar's home state. She was already showing to win. It was a very close race we were expecting already. So you take Amy Klobuchar in her home state and just add it to Biden. Kind of makes sense the amount that she won by, or that he won by. Maine was obviously very close. So why am I saying all this? So let's go to even Texas. Texas in 2016, Sanders lost by a really large margin. So the point I'm trying to get to right now is that the losses that Sanders has suffered right now in Super Tuesday are actually quite narrow. Like if you look right now, California, for some reason in their infinite wisdom, mainstream media hasn't called California for Bernie Sanders, even though he's crushing it. And when those delegates come out, it's quite reasonable that Sanders will actually tie or slightly surpass or be around there in terms of delegate count compared to Biden. Whereas again, in 2016, he was so far behind, even taking out the superdelegate votes. And what states are coming up? Mainly, it's the Midwest and the West, places that in 2016 Sanders readily took on. Now, the other part of this is it's turning back into a 1v1 and Elizabeth Warren. So hopefully she drops out. That's going to be a huge factor on how he goes going forward. If Elizabeth Warren decides to stake in the entire race, that's a whole.
It's selfish and completely immature.
Yeah. So, but let's just say, just for the sake of what I'm discussing, I know we've already seen people that she's already planning stuff, but just for a second, pretend Elizabeth Warren grows a conscience in a spine for 5 seconds and decides that she's going to pull out of the race because she's completely non-viable. Then we're talking about a race that's between Sanders and Biden. Sanders has to start calling out Joe Biden on Midwest politics, NAFTA, things of that nature. He seems to already starting to do that.
He's doing some attack ads. There's actually another ad.
Yeah, but he's doing some attack ads right now. That situation, if you think of it that way, we walk into roughly equivalent delegates at that point. But if Sanders can really hit Biden, really take down Biden, especially at the debate that's coming up, that could be enough to give Sanders a strong plurality. Because, again, you're not splitting it between 10 people. It's 2. Again, Sanders has to do a whole lot. Again, I threw that package in the other place that Sanders has to make changes. But it's not a terrible outcome from that perspective compared to 2016.
All right, Kira.
Oh, okay. I'm not ready, but okay. So I think one of the things that I am seeing in this story, first of all, is this an op-ed? Like, is this an opinion piece, or is this...
It's an opinion piece.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It has a lot of flavoring words in it, and I was like, this
is quite bitter.
Yeah, it is quite bitter, and so I was curious about that. And then some of the other pieces, I think that a lot of us in the Bernie camp weren't expecting to have the race be this close, and so everybody's a little surprised. So then, the conversation is, oh, we're losing, when really that is not the case at all. And I don't know the numbers on it, but I'd be curious to see the numbers between Bernie and Hillary at this time in the race of delegates and compare them.
Hillary was hundreds and hundreds of delegates ahead, and now
Plus
after
with the
California gets counted, they might.
Yeah,
be
I
within
thought
10.
that she had been doing better at that time. So
it was the superdelegates that was kind of shown.
And
at the time.
even then, California in 2016 was basically a 50-50 cut.
Yeah.
Sanders will be ahead by like 10 or 15 points.
Right. And so I think that a lot of times when we're in this position of, oh, we're doing horribly, and even when we're in the position of, I really think that we're going to win, right, that it leads the electorate to rest on their laurels a little bit. If we're going to lose anyway, never mind. If we're going to win anyway, never mind. And I think that the messaging that we should be putting out as independent media, saying, "Hey, no, this game is still very alive," and seeing more of Biden talking on stage at the March 15th debate will be helpful for Bernie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Although, unfortunately, the next big swath of voting states is next Tuesday.
They're smaller states.
They're smaller states, okay. And I didn't look how many delegates are up for grabs on Tuesday because I didn't know I was going in this direction with my talking. But 2 days after the March 15th debate, we vote here in Illinois along with 3 other fairly large states, including
Ohio.
Florida.
2 days after the debate.
Ohio.
And Missouri and Mississippi.
Okay. Oh, there are 5 states.
Yes.
Oh, I thought there were 4. Okay. So I think that there's still a really big game here to be played, and Bernie Sanders has the infrastructure to do it.
Yeah.
As far as ways of doing things differently, I agree with you, Daniel. I think he needs to get more on the attack.
No more, my friend.
You're a politician, not an organizer.
Yeah.
Get out there
Yeah.
and do your thing,
Stop
man.
calling him your friend.
You know, tear that mofo down. First of all, and then also just the get out the vote, especially for the black communities, is not. I'm not seeing it as being really strong in the Sanders camp. And so, if there is anything that his camp can do, that thank you, Paul. Will you put that back there? Oh.
Yeah. So it looks like the.
I want to read it.
It looks like the big states are going to be Michigan, Missouri, and Washington that have.
Yeah.
All the other ones are smaller, but
And those are on March 10th.
so that's
March
very
10th.
5
soon.
days before the debate.
Idaho and North Dakota.
But if
as
you
well.
look below on March 17th, it's a
We
lot
have
more
Arizona,
delegates.
Florida, Illinois, Ohio.
So you're talking 365 delegates on March 10th, but 570 cents. So yeah, we need Sanders to do well on 10th.
Right. So here's what I want to add on to this.
Oh, and I wanted to add one
Go-
more thing.
go.
And I think Sanders has the infrastructure to do that. I think he has the kind of infrastructure that he can pivot fast. Right?
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that.
So here's what it stands right now in regards to delegate counts, because some people in chat are asking, well, what are the delegate counts? As it stands right now, Joe Biden has about 566 delegates. Bernie Sanders, 501 delegates. Senator Elizabeth Warren, 61 delegates. Michael Bloomberg, 53 delegates. Pete Buttigieg, 26 delegates. Amy Klobuchar, 7, and Representative Tulsi Gabbard was 1. Now, the thing is, right now, there's 1,215 delegates that have been declared. To win the nomination, you need to have 1,991 delegates to be the nominee for the Democratic primary. Now, the thing is that now's not the time to get discouraged. This is the time to redouble your efforts and know the rules and regulations of your state's primary laws and get out to vote and know your rights as a voter. Looking at Biden and this race against Bernie Sanders, again, let's just say the numbers. 566 for Joe Biden, 501 for Senator Bernie Sanders. That's very close. This is a close race, much closer than it was between Clinton and Bernie. Not to mention the superdelegates are right now not factoring in at this moment. It is very possible right now, again, Joe Biden is his own worst enemy. The more he speaks, the more he talks, the more people realize that there is something fundamentally wrong with the mental mind space of Joe Biden. Every time Joe Biden speaks, people start reacting to him in a different way. And again, look, it's very recent, but let's rewind back the clocks to the very first debate and to the very last debate. If you're a diehard Warren, Sanders supporter, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Gabbard supporter, I think we all can agree that Biden failed miserably against all the other candidates throughout all those debates. There's no way you can make a real solid argument that, you know what, Joe Biden did good. No, he didn't. He made himself into a clown. He didn't even win the first 3 primary states. South Carolina, his firewall, in the general election, it's going to turn red. It's going to turn red. Joe Biden, for Super Tuesday, won red states for the Electoral College. That's not a major win, and corporate media spinning this narrative, they're wrong.
So
Daniel, final
I
note.
want to add into this. So we're talking about those numbers again. It's
Hold on. Let me go and pull it.
560
Okay,
versus 500.
Joe Biden has about 566. Bernie Sanders has 501.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, California has almost 500, like 450-ish delegates that are worth in California.
415.
451. Yeah, so around there. So right now, if I'm not mistaken, only about a third of those delegates have actually been allocated.
Right now,
point.
90% reporting in.
But again, the delegates only about a 30%. I should say about 30 a third of those delegates have been allocated, about 150-ish.
Yeah.
So Sanders is going to take a really right now. It's already like a 50-point lead that he has in delegates with only a third counted, and we're expecting that margin he has to actually increase as the LA votes come in later.
And he's about 60 delegates
So if he's 60
away from Biden right now.
Yeah.
So if we factor that out, and even if we don't give him a larger margin, if we say that he's right now 60 delegates ahead of Biden in California now, and only a third of the delegates have been awarded, we can just quick math and say that's about 180 total that he'll be ahead. So that's 120. If he's currently 60 behind, he might be 60 ahead by the time California finishes counting, which means he would actually be, after Super Tuesday, in the lead. which is convenient for mainstream media because they're already getting the word out. Like, oh, he's already behind. You can't beat him.
Right.
And then they're going to be like, oh, don't worry.
Oh, I
don't worry
thought
about
Bernie had all this infrastructure. I thought he
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
this big movement. What
So,
happened?
Yeah.
Well,
so
you
he
know.
actually literally could still be ahead by actually have increased his margin since before Super Tuesday by the time California fully votes.
Absolutely. And again, the only way we can make this happen is don't get discouraged to vote. I'm not believing this corporate media hype. I'm not going to just say, oh, well, it's done. It's all over. No. We're not.
don't
we're,
do it.
We're not going to play that game here at Hard Lens Media. You guys are viewers and subscribers. You got to get out to vote. This is the time to fight. Again, the numbers, 566 to 501. And again, a third of the delegates have been allocated in California. Bernie Sanders has been declared the winner. He's going to get the majority of the delegates, and watch him play catch up. And again,
Shabir's like,
yeah.
nothing to worry about.
Nothing
No,
to
it's
worry
fine."
about. It's over. I
Yeah.
mean, come on. This is starting to get stupid right now. And when we see Biden again make more gas, because we're going to be doing some Biden it up
Biden it
stores.
up.
I mean, the guy is a clown, and he will fail. There's something wrong with Biden. No one wants to say it yet, but I think I think we'll find out sooner rather than later. Biden once again screwing up something
Yeah.
at an epic
Let's
level.
just keep our eyes on victory.
Yeah.
And if you knew that every action you took was one step closer to a victory
Yeah.
for Bernie Sanders, what would you do differently?